The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
So we have the debate last week, the first presidential debate. Basically, the consensus is that Mitt Romney won. Now, what it means to win varies depending on who you are. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Then we get jobs numbers on Fridays, unexpectedly strong. They show unemployment falling to 7.8%. They show 114,000 new jobs. Well, what do the Republicans say right away? They say it's obviously that Obama, because the debate performance was so bad, went out there and told the Bureau of Labor Statistics to just manipulate the jobs numbers to make it seem like there's more jobs being created. Jack Welch was at the forefront of this. Let's put up his tweet, Natan, that he put up on Twitter. This is unbelievable. He says, "Unbelievable jobs numbers. These Chicago guys will do anything. Can't debate, so change the numbers." Yeah, that's of course what happened. President Obama said, you know what, I did so bad in the debate, I'm going to call someone at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I'm going to tell them, change the reports to add jobs, but really don't change it very much. Keep it kind of like within the margin of error and just kind of slowly declining in terms of the unemployment rate and slowly increasing in terms of jobs the way it's been for years. And that'll be the way to take attention off my bad debate performance. Perfect. But it's not just Jack Welch. You would say, well, if it's just one lone nut, what does it matter? But it's not. Congressman Allen West, Republican from Florida, he joined in on this. He said, I agree with former GE CEO Jack Welch. Chicago-style politics is at work here. Somehow, by manipulation of data, we're all of a sudden, below 8% unemployment 1 month from the presidential election. Let's stop there. Look at the graph we have up here. Does anything seem sudden about the drop below 8%, Lewis? Or do we see kind of a pretty steady decline in the unemployment rate since President Obama took office?
It seems steady.
It seems pretty steady. There's nothing sudden about this.
Right.
And then Congressman West goes on, this is Orwellian, to say the least, and representative of Saul Alinsky tactics from the book Rules for Radicals, a must-read for all who want to know how the left strategize. Okay, well, maybe it was just Jack Welch and Congressman Allen West. No, it wasn't. It was also Fox News. Here's one of our favorites, Stuart Varney, who is apparently considered smarter because he has a British accent. That's the Fox News idea with him. He's British, so obviously we can trust him. Here's what he had to say jumping into the mix.
Unemployment dropping below 8% for the first time in 4 years. But a lot of questions remain about those numbers, and we'll go through that for you.
There's a lot of questions about this headline number.
There is widespread mistrust of this report and these numbers because there are clear contradictions.
You're below 8%. So to the politics on this now.
That's where some of the mistrust comes in.
Yeah, sure, Stuart, of course. You know, really, most of the mistrust he's referencing is on his own network. I mean, it's created by his own network, and then it's cited. It's when Fox News says, you know, some are saying President Obama's an anti-American Muslim. Yeah, and most of those some are on your own channel.
Yeah. And it's, you know, they're talking about jobs numbers here, and they have no proof that they were manipulated. So basically what's happening is you are telling a lie and hoping that it's true. They have no proof of this.
Of course not.
Yeah.
And it goes even further. Con Carroll from the Washington Examiner, he put out a tweet saying, I don't think Bureau of Labor Statistics cooked numbers. I think a bunch of Democrats lied about getting jobs. It would have the same effect. That's what happened. So the debate was so bad for Obama that even though obviously these numbers were compiled from the entire month, somehow after September was already over, in October, Democrats contacted the Bureau of Labor Statistics and said, hey, I'm working, guys. I'm working. I now have a job, to inflate the numbers. And then lastly, on CNBC, Rick Santelli said, I told you they'd get it under 8%. They did. You can let America decide how they got there. Okay, so this is total nonsense. These numbers have nothing to do with Obama. It's funny, people don't believe these jobs numbers, which have nothing to do with Obama, but they believe Sheriff Joe Arpaio and Donald Trump that Obama's birth certificate isn't real.
Pretty amazing.
Even more fascinating is that, think about it, ladies and gentlemen, if conservatives believe the 7.8 number is fake, in that case, the numbers that were over 8% would also have been fake, right? I mean, if the Bureau of Labor Statistics can manipulate numbers and they're in the pockets of Obama, why would they wait almost 4 years to start faking the numbers? Couldn't they have changed the numbers years ago and made Obama look really good?
Why do it right at the end?
They would have stopped Romney's complete campaign. He wouldn't have been able to campaign on this. And let's go even further. If the Bureau of Labor Statistics is so subject to fakery, then the over 8% numbers could have been fake. And Romney really has no basis for blaming a bad economy by pointing to those numbers on President Obama. I mean, it's fascinating. Conservatives are doubting the information they were using to build a case against Obama for the last 18 months.
Yeah. I mean, any numbers could be faked, right?
No question about it.
We can just throw out all unemployment numbers from the past 20 years.
They're all fake.
Yeah.
No question. A campaign surrogate of Mitt Romney's, this is Congressman Phil Gringy from Georgia, is now admitting, yeah, Romney is changing positions just to win votes. If you saw the debate and you thought that it was a bunch of nonsense and Mitt Romney was going against just about every major policy outline that he's made over the last 18 months, his surrogates are admitting it. Here's Phil Gringy admitting it. This is on the Soledad O'Brien show. I forget the name of it. American Morning, maybe, on CNN. Take a listen.
But doesn't he have a point there as he was on the campaign trail that he was dancing around, and this is now a flip from what he said very, specifically and concretely before?
I've been watching and involved in presidential politics since 1960 when I first voted.
And I've been lying about it ever since.
The Republican, the conservative candidate in the primary is always going to lean right and come back to the center for the general, the opposite for the Democrat. That's all you're seeing here. It's very typical. We strong conservatives understand that. There are a lot of undecideds in this country that are hopefully right of center, not left of center, but we want those votes too. So this is campaign strategy. This is nothing new under the sun, and President Obama understands that.
This is the same lying that always goes on, and Mitt Romney's doing it. So basically what he's saying is Mitt Romney is selling the country a used car that's going to get us out of the dealership and almost home before the wheels fall off. And then it's just what people do. It's these used car dealers. This is typical. They say one thing, but they mean the other.
It's an interesting explanation. I mean, we call it lying and flip-flopping. He calls it leaning towards the center.
Right.
Yeah.
Leaning towards the center is the new euphemism for saying stuff that's the exact opposite of what you've been campaigning on.
Yeah.
There's actually a name for what Mitt Romney did. You know, I was talking to a bunch of people about Romney won the debate. He won the debate in terms of style, but what's interesting is if you actually go, and this is pretty basic, if you go and look at the rules for high school debate teams, one of the main things is you have to say things that are true in order to even be in the picture for winning, right? You can't win if all you do is tell lies. However, colloquially, in the minds of many Americans, Mitt Romney won, but he didn't. He actually used a technique, and this is explained extensively on Urban Dictionary, called the Gish Gallop. Have you heard of this, Lewis?
I have not.
Have you heard of this, Natan?
Well, I read about this a couple days ago after the debate.
Yeah, so the tactic is basically this. It's named after after Dwayne Gish, okay? And it involves spewing so much BS in a short amount of time that your opponent can't possibly address or counter all of it. And in other words, you just say so much stuff that's not true with the tiniest element of truth in it, that how is President Obama going to say, listen, here's an explanation for 95% of what he said and why it's false, and I need to explain with nuance the 5% grain of truth that's in there. You just can't do it. You just can't do it. The Gish Gallop has two traits. Number one, anyone who is actually knowledgeable about the subject matter realizes that there is no logical content to the arguments. There's no factual content to the arguments. So at number one, it's targeted specifically at people who just don't know the issues, but are going based on style. Mm-hmm. They're going based on the feeling they get. And number two, the points that are made by the Gish Galloper are points that the Gish Galloper themselves know aren't true, okay? But they're just going to throw as much into a small space as possible to make it impossible to refute, or, to quote Sarah Palin, to refudiate. And that's exactly what happened here.
It is a brilliant strategy.
Natan, is it brilliant?
Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant in sort of talking down to voters and convincing, ignorant voters that they should trust a guy for simply using those tactics. It's good for that, yeah.
Yeah, but you're specifically targeting at people who don't realize that that's the tactic.
Correct.
And that's why it works. We talked about 27 lies in 38 minutes for Mitt Romney in the last debate. Let's take a second just to focus on 5 of the biggest ones, because these are some of the ones that are most controversial. One of them is, I don't have a $5 trillion tax cut. Okay? Now, we've looked at this extensively. A number of independent economists say it is about a $5 trillion tax cut over the next decade. Yes, it could vary based on what happens after Mitt Romney's out of office. If it's 4 years or 8 years, the policy could change. But the point is, we're looking at what would the effect be in a decade, which is standard. It's true, those loopholes Mitt Romney wants to close or open or whatever, it could change that number, but he won't tell us what those are. I mean, he just won't say which are those loopholes. How are we to know?
Yeah, and who knows if they'll even be put in place or removed at all. I mean,
Right.
he's just saying something.
Exactly. And then number 2, I will not reduce the taxes paid by high-income Americans. Okay, we know that that's BS. According to the Tax Policy Center, the tax cut that Romney Ryan are proposing would create a net tax cut for high-income taxpayers and a net tax increase for low and middle-income taxpayers. That's lie number 2. Biggest lie number 3 of the debate. He says we've got 23 million people out of work or who have stopped looking for work. It's just not the right numbers. 12.5 million are out of work. 2.6 million have stopped looking. That's 15.1 million. Very simple math. It's just arithmetic, Lewis. You know that. Mitt Romney is getting to this number by including 8 million people who are working part-time in this group of people who are unemployed or no longer looking for work. Now, that's not honest. That's just not honest, Lewis. Some of those people, yes, they would like to be working full-time. However, you've got students in there. You've got people who are happy to be working part-time. To say that all of those are unemployed is just not true.
Right. And I mean, when you say that, you're basically he makes it sound like they're all collecting unemployment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely false. Number 4, Obamacare creates an unelected board that will tell people what types of treatment they can have. You know what this one is, Lewis.
This is the panel that was formed to try and cut healthcare costs.
This is Death Panel. This is the Death Panel meme from Sarah Palin. It's not even worth rehashing this, because it's already been dubbed the lie of the year when Sarah Palin was using it. And lastly, Mitt Romney said, pre-existing conditions are covered under my plan. No, they're not. And Mitt Romney's top advisor has already conceded this is incorrect. To be 100% clear, Mitt Romney's plan requires continuous coverage to be protected, meaning you're just out of luck if you have a pre-existing condition and had any interruption in coverage. And this is the pre-Obamacare law. Obamacare does change this. This is a lie from Mitt Romney. Those are the 5 biggest lies. There were 27, though.
Yeah.
Can he top 27 in the next debate?
Why not? Sky's the limit.
Why stop? He's an overachiever.
I'm sure these 5 will be repeated.
At least once.
Yeah.
And maybe even in the vice presidential debate, which we have coming up this week.
We'll see.
Before we take a break, it's Monday, time for a book recommendation made possible in part by A Fashion of Bastards, the best-selling satirical forecast of American politics circa 2015 by Joanna Louise Johnson. Find it on Amazon.com. I'm actually recommending 3 books today. And really, you could pick up any books by this author because they're all fantastic. One of my favorite authors, Lewis, Raymond Chandler. I'm recommending 3 specific books, which are 3 of my favorites. The High Window, Lady in the Lake, and The Long Goodbye. All classics in my mind. I would say, would you agree, Natan, that Raymond Chandler essentially developed the kind of film noir style crime novel?
Yeah, the sort of modern American crime novel. He's definitely the author of that in every sense. I'm actually rereading The Long Goodbye right now. It's like the 3rd time I've read it. It's excellent. It's
absolutely fantastic. These are quick reads. These are the type of thing you just pick up, you read through it. The storylines are great. They're fantastic. It'll open up a whole new genre of reading for you, Lewis. I highly recommend this the next time you have to read a book.
Thank you, David.
Which may not happen for a long time.
I can't promise anything.
All right, let's take a break. DavidPakman.com/debate ends tonight. Get a free t-shirt with a yearly membership. DavidPakman.com/debate. Take a break. Plenty more after this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Support the show for free by using our Amazon link at davidpakman.com. It's on the black banner. Click it, bookmark it, use it anytime you shop at Amazon. You'll take 7% of your purchase and send it to the David Pakman Show, and take it away from Amazon. That's pretty good just for clicking a link, isn't it, Lewis?
Yeah, of course.
This is for the stuff you're already going to buy on Amazon. Just use that link. Or become a David Pakman Show member, made possible in part by liberalbias.com. People talk about liberal arts colleges all the time, but you never hear about those conservative arts. That seems really biased to me. That's the type of thing you learn about at liberalbias.com.
Yes.
Deanne Carr. Deanne Carr is a new David Pakman Show member. It's great to say hello to her. Thank you to you very, very much, as well as every other David Pakman Show member. Big, big deal, Lewis.
It is a big deal. It's a big effing deal.
Big effing deal, no question. Paul Ryan walked out of an interview after being asked a couple of questions. This was an interview with ABC 12 in Flint, Michigan. And he just didn't like it that he just ended the interview. A staffer stepped in and said, thank you, and just kind of wrapped it up. What was so controversial? This is what was so controversial. Now, I want to note here, imagine Democratic politicians getting this aggressive and visibly angry during an interview like this when their tenets, their basic ideas are questioned, and then think about how aggressive and angry Paul Ryan appears to be. Let's take a look.
This country has a crime problem.
Not a gun problem.
No, I mean, if you take a look at the gun laws we have, I don't even think President Obama was proposing more gun laws. We have good, strong gun laws. We have to make sure. Well, we have to make sure we enforce our laws. Yeah, we have lots of laws that aren't being properly enforced. We need to make sure we enforce these laws. But the best thing to help prevent violent crime in the inner cities is to bring opportunity in the inner cities. Is to help people get out of in the inner cities. Is to help teach people good discipline, good character. That is civil society. That's what charities and civic groups and churches do to help one another make sure that they can realize the value in one another.
And you can do all that by cutting taxes, right, with a big tax cut.
Those are yours, not mine.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. Sorry. That was kind of strange. You're trying to stuff words in people's mouths?
Well,
And then somebody starts trying to cover up the camera. A guy steps in front of it. It's very weird.
That's a little odd. Yeah, that was.
There we go. So this is just weird stuff, but I'm not surprised by it. I mean, where the reporter, it seems like it's kind of an instigating question, but where the reporter is going is, so are you going to fix a crime problem by cutting rich people's taxes, laying off police, and having even less people to enforce the laws you say are already not being enforced? It's really a pretty brilliant question.
Well, I mean, not just that. I mean, cutting all the social programs that he's talking about.
Absolutely.
That's a huge part of it, and he completely dug his own grave on that one. It's completely ridiculous and absurd, and he's just pandering, and the interviewer catches him.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this, Natan.
Yeah, just a prediction for the debate on Thursday. Ryan's going to be very nervous like he was at the convention. Joe Biden's going to be just completely freewheeling, and it's going to show.
All right, we'll see if that happens. Newt Gingrich alludes to racial overtones by saying maybe Obama needs to go play basketball. I mean, after all, he is black, Lewis, and isn't that what black people do?
Sure, yeah.
Here's Newt Gingrich. I love this.
I'm assuming there's some rhythm to Barack Obama that the rest of us don't understand. Whether he needs large amounts of rest, whether he needs to go play basketball for a while. I don't watch ESPN. I mean, I don't quite know what his.
I mean, Lewis, let's be honest. This is a black president, and black presidents, unlike any other presidents, would need to do different things to do well at politics, including playing basketball or watching sports on ESPN. What else is there to say?
Could have been worse, but I mean, did he just say this because he knows Barack enjoys playing basketball?
Come on. I mean, let's. So when George W.
Can we say with certitude?
We cannot say with certitude, but let's think about the other example. Would anybody think to say, you know, Bush wasn't doing that well in that debate. Maybe the guy just needs to go cut some wood on his ranch, or go watch a baseball game. Or I mean, right? Why is this the first thing that comes to Newt Gingrich's mind? That the debate performance was affected because Obama didn't watch enough sports on TV or play basketball, a predominantly black sport in the professional leagues in the U.S. I mean, come on.
It's the first thing that came to his mind probably because it's a racial stereotype.
What do you think about this, Natan?
Yeah, I guess Obama reminds Gingrich of Michael Jordan, which in a way he is the political equivalent of, I should say.
Yeah, maybe that's what's really being implied. I don't know. All right, there is a campaign in broad daylight by Republicans to steal this election. Let me build the case for you. Number one, we have Republicans widely on the record in public, including Pennsylvania House Republican leader Mike Turzai, saying voter ID is going to win the election for Mitt Romney. Take a look at this.
voter ID, which is going to allow Governor Romney to win the state of Pennsylvania. Done.
Step one. There's step one. What's step two? Step two is, as we talked about, Rick Scott in Florida trying to get people off the voter rolls, making them prove they're actually citizens if their names sound Hispanic, if they live in Democratic counties. Number three, Strategic Allied Consulting, fired in North Carolina and in Florida, contracted by Republicans for voter registration, widely known to be a company involved in all sorts of illegal and unethical voter registration tactics. Keep it going. No exit polls in 19 states. We'll talk with Brad Friedman about that. If you haven't heard about that, stay tuned. Keeps it going. Bain-controlled company, Hart Intercivic, owns the voting machines in a number of key swing states. And these machines have failed in the past. Adding votes, taking votes away, not reporting the right number of votes. Very easy to manipulate, Lewis.
Yes.
And most recently, poll challengers. What are poll challengers, Lewis?
What are poll challengers?
I'll tell you what they are.
Okay.
Poll challengers are these people that are going to be showing up at the polls, even though legally people will not have to show ID, and scaring them by walking through and observing and actually challenging votes, saying they can't vote, getting people to leave. We actually have on video training for these poll challengers. Take a listen to this, Lewis.
My name is Pat Moreland, and I've been teaching the Challenger classes for about 2 years now.
But what I'm saying is like they recently moved, like it was a college student or something, so
no,
they're still in that
vote
same
provisional.
area. Okay,
Yeah.
provisional.
They can vote provisional, that's all. They cannot vote regular. You can request to see a form of ID, okay? So at the request of 2 or more precinct board members of different political parties, a voter shall still present the required physical form of identification.
Now, that's just not true. What they're teaching these people is just not true. The fact is, only people who registered by mail and didn't send a copy of their ID have to show ID before voting. Otherwise, you don't. If you've registered in person, any other number of things, you don't have to. But these people are going to be out in force, and what's incredible is that there are Republicans who support this. This is unbelievable. New Mexico Congressman Steve Pierce defends these tactics, saying, we're simply saying that we're going to start taking it back into our own hands. We should check for ID, since you have to show an ID to do anything in America. Now, again, the reality is this is illegal. Republican congressman supports it. This is happening. And we'll talk to Brad Friedman about what, if anything, can be done and really how this is happening at the ground level.
Yeah, this is really incredible. I mean, if only there were, a federal, I don't even know, a federal plan to go after these type of tactics. It seems that maybe they're just preoccupied. I don't know, but this could be a huge problem, and it could be a deciding factor in the election.
It's huge. This is huge, and we'll talk to Brad Friedman about it. Before we talk to Brad, we now have a great report on Mother Jones from James West outlining a lot of the specific Chinese companies that Mitt Romney has invested in, and this is incredible. It's now been revealed, Lewis, that some of those companies have been embezzling money. Some of those Chinese companies have been partnering with Iran. And some of those companies have been accused and essentially found guilty of stealing U.S. trade secrets. And Mitt Romney is investing in these companies. Now, Mitt Romney has said many times, what about China? We're going to get tough on China. It's time to what? I mean, everything. He seems very
no
anti-China.
more borrowing from China.
No more borrowing from China. Exactly. Now, the reality is that Mitt Romney has hidden behind this blind trust thing. He doesn't manage his own investments. But Romney himself, way back when in 1994, said the blind trust is one of the biggest ruses. It's an age-old ruse, if you will. You can always tell the blind trust what it can and cannot do. You give a blind trust rules. Well, listen to this. One of the companies Mitt Romney invested in, China Life Insurance. A fifth of Mitt Romney's China profits came from China Life Insurance. This is a firm that, according to China's National Audit Office, was embezzling $172 million, overstating sales, improperly settling claims. Mitt Romney invested in that. Mitt Romney helped build that, you could say. Number two, China National Offshore Oil Corporation. The Romneys invested about $77,000 in this company. It turns out that they are doing business with Iran. Now, Mitt Romney, not only is he saying, we're not going to do business with China, he's saying we're not going to do anything that will help Iran. But it turns out that Mitt Romney invested in a company that is helping Iran develop natural gas fields. This is incredible. Romney is against Iran having a nuclear weapon, but he's investing in companies helping to get Iran energy development, he's got to go, Lewis. This guy can't be our president.
If only everyone in the country could read about this.
Let's take a break. Brad Friedman coming up next on voter suppression, election fraud. Stay tuned. A lot of great stuff coming up, as well as Lewis playing a heavy metal show wearing a full suit. You're not going to want to miss that. Stay tuned.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Joining me is Brad Friedman. He's an investigative journalist at bradblog.com. Brad, over the last few weeks, we've been covering individually all of the different voter ID, voter suppression, election fraud tactics that are being employed by the right, which has kind of turned into its own campaign, right? It's separate from issues, it's separate from debates, it's separate from swing states. This is really a campaign that's out there essentially to steal the election regardless of what the will of the voters is. Talk a little bit about your research. What's the latest thing on this front? I mean, we've got the training of the poll challengers. We've got strategic allied consulting being fired. There's so many things. I don't even know what's the big thing to tell people about.
You know what? There's so many big things. I don't even know what to tell people. I mean, this is, and people who know me, who know our work at Bradblog, know that pretty much year-round, I'm out here trying to warn people, hey, you know, everyone else is looking at the horse race. I'm trying to warn people to look at the track conditions, because the track conditions on which the horses run often have as much to say about who wins and loses as anything else. And it is those track conditions that are really starting to affect this race and concerning a lot of people finally this year, as well they should. Yeah, you've got an unprecedented effort, at least in the modern era, at least in the post-Jim Crow era, you know, to really game every aspect of that track, if you will, that the horses are running on, trying to keep people from voting, from being able to cast their vote at all, and frankly, trying to keep people from even registering to vote, as we found this week or last week in an investigation at Bradblog.com. There is a Republican effort across the entire country, a voter registration effort that is involved with this Nathan Sproul and his strategic allied consulting group, but even larger than that, it seems, to essentially lie to potential registrants, tell them that tell them that they're pollsters instead of voter registration workers, in order to filter out Obama supporters to keep them from being able to register to vote at all. It's a really appalling strategy, and we've caught them doing it now on videotape in Nevada, in Colorado, in Virginia, in Oregon, in California. It's going on all across the country, where these folks are signing up people to vote, but instead of being straightforward about that, they say, hey, we're taking a poll today. Are you voting for Obama or Romney? And if they say Obama, they say, great, thank you for taking the poll. If they say Romney, they say, great, are you signed up to vote? If not, here's a registration form. Let me help you vote. So they're gaming this system from that front end before people even register. Then you come to access.
Let's even stop there just for a second. I mean, it goes bottom up, right? Number one is we've seen the videos, including the video of the young girl in Colorado claiming to be working for the county office, but she actually wasn't, really doing exactly what you're saying, trying to register only Romney voters. And then we simultaneously had the efforts, like in Florida, to question, to put the imperative on voters to prove that they are actually eligible. Let's say you get past that. We're seeing these efforts of the poll challengers who are going to be there on election day, even if you don't legally need to show an ID, a picture ID, to go through the lines and scare people by saying you're going to need to show an ID, with the hopes that people will just leave. And then let's say you stay and you actually cast your ballot. Then it turns out that Hart Intercivic, which is controlled by Bain, owns the voting machines in a number of different key states. And it's actually known that these voting machines have faltered in the past.
Well, yeah, that's the, and by the way, you forgot one step there, David. That is the idea of being able to get to a poll that is open to vote at all, because they're limiting early election days, early election hours, and so forth. So, yeah, if you can run that entire gauntlet, if you're allowed to register to vote, if you can get to the polls, if you're allowed to cast your vote without being challenged, yes, there is the very serious question, and this is something that I've been trying to point out of late as well, because with all of the concerns about the front-end suppression going on, there's something equally as important, and that is the back end. That is, will your vote be counted? Will it be counted accurately? And will it be counted accurately in a way that you can know it is counted accurately? And the clear question to that is, no, you won't know, because of the systems that we use. You mentioned the electronic voting systems by Hart InterCivic, but add to that every single other electronic voting system that we use in all 50 states, and I'm not just talking about touchscreen systems, I'm talking about optical scan systems as well, because those are computers as well, and unfortunately we do not check them to make sure they counted the ballots correctly. They are also owned by operatives from the right and from the left, if you will. I don't care. I'm troubled, that we have privatized our electoral system to be counted on these computers, that we simply do not check for accuracy, and even if we do, we can't know for sure that they're counting the votes accurately. So this is very troubling. It's a front-end strategy. It's a back-end concern, and this goes, as you pointed out, David, very smartly, well beyond the candidates themselves, well beyond the issues. And it's something that I yell and scream about year-round. I wish other people would do it not in the week or two before the election, when it's by and large too late to do too much about it. But, all year round, when we can finally say, look, let's get rid of these electronic voting systems that are privatized, that are not transparent, replace them with, hand counting at the precinct on election day so that the citizenry can oversee its own results and make sure that the election is tabulated accurately. That's what we must do.
The one thing we didn't touch on too much is the exit polls that have basically been canceled by the National Election Pool in, I think it's 19 states. Initially, the reaction was, well, none of these are really competitive states anyway, so we don't really need to worry about it. But there are still problems with this, right? I mean, this is the exit polls at least serve as somewhat of a baseline to compare election results to, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the problem. We use exit polls all around the world as a check and balance against fraud. And when you take away that check and balance, as we seem to take away more and more of these, but now the exit polls themselves in these 19 states, yes, you have nothing to compare it to. You've already got votes that are counted in secret in these computers in a way that we have no idea if they're being counted accurately or not. The only hedge against that in many places are these exit polls. And now those are gone in 19 states. Now you can say that, they're not competitive states, but a couple of things troubled me with that. One is that if they're not competitive states, but if they show up the opposite in the presidential race, an opposite result of what people expect them to be, people will say, oh, well, what do you know? It was what a surprise in that state. And they'll have nothing to compare it to say, well, was it really a surprise, or did somebody game the system, or was there just an error? Secondly, and this is a great frustration for me, the presidential election is not the only race on the ballot this November. There are state races, congressional races, local races, and they are all affected by all of these things that we're talking about. Access to the polls, who gets to vote, the accuracy of the voting system. They are all affected by these factors, and exit polls serve, once again, as a check and balance against all of those things, so that we can try to have some idea whether the results are accurate. Now remember, for years now, the exit pollsters have stopped releasing their raw data, because the raw data that they released in 2004 showed that John Kerry won in almost all of the swing states, that the election results from the machines showed that George W. Bush won. So, the way to deal with that is the exit pollster said, well, we're not going to release that data anymore. The other thing that they do is they actually adjust the data at the end of the night to match up with the election results, which seemingly defies the purpose of having exit polls in the first place. So these are losing their value over time, and it's getting even worse now when they're just removing them entirely in 19 states. I think people should be very, very troubled about that.
Incredible. All right, we've been speaking with Brad Friedman. He's an investigative journalist. Bradblog.com is the website. You've got to make sure to get his newsletter. I don't know if it's daily or how often it goes out, but it's fantastic stuff that you've got in there, Brad, so keep up the good work.
Thanks, David. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all that you're doing, and thanks for paying attention to these issues. I wish more people were doing so.
All right, let's take a break. Plenty more. Stay tuned after this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome back to the show. If you've been thinking about becoming a David Pakman Show member, or you haven't, I want to make sure you know we are mostly supported by individual memberships from people like you, including many of you that are watching today, fortunately. And I want to just say, if this is a time that you realize the David Pakman Show is something you like and you want to continue to be around, think about, I don't know, if once or twice a week you go and get one of those expensive coffees, maybe put what one or two of those coffees costs towards a full month of membership. Or if you go out and you get a slice of pizza here and there, Lewis, we're really not talking about more money than that to become a David Pakman Show member, but every single additional membership is more resources that we have to continue to grow the show and expand programming the way lately we've actually been able to do.
Right. Pretty reasonable. A couple expensive beers, couple expensive coffees. Maybe you could forgo those things.
There you go.
We'll see. Then
not that I would suggest anyone forego coffee, and we actually have a story on today's bonus show about which professions drink the most coffee. That's another reason to become a member, because you get the bonus show hosted and produced by Louis Motamedi. And today on the show, we're actually talking about, on the bonus show, which professions drink the most coffee. It would actually surprise you. I'll also go through my coffee habits and Lewis's. davidpakman.com/membership. But for the rest of today, davidpakman.com/debate. And you will get a free t-shirt with a yearly membership there. Over the weekend, we had quite a weekend, and we were off on Columbus Day, as you know, and not because we support the killing and taking of land from Native Americans, but simply because it's a holiday and we decided to take it off. And we were actually up in Vermont, and Lewis was up there in part for a wedding, but because he had to go from the wedding to a Krakatoa metal band show, Lewis, of course, playing guitar in a metal band, he had to play guitar in his suit, and we actually have a picture of that. If you're just listening to this, maybe it'd be best to look this up on YouTube. But there's Lewis tuning up his guitar. Actually, I can't tell if you're tuning up here or if this is actually the show and you're just you don't show that much emotion.
I think this was pre-show. I was just warming up.
So Lewis wearing what appears to be a gray suit, lavender shirt, and is that a silver tie?
Yeah.
Silver tie. And there you go, playing guitar. Does this suit fit you properly?
I believe so.
Okay.
Probably hard to tell when I've got a guitar strap over me. And
yeah. You may want to have
the pants,
taken in.
The pants are a little baggier because I'm taller and have wide shoulders. The only suits that fit me are ones that happen to have like a 34 waist, but it was tailored.
Yeah, you could get this thing brought in a little bit.
It was brought in. Yeah.
Maybe a little more I would do.
Perhaps.
But anyway, we can discuss that at another time.
Yeah.
But was it uncomfortable to play in a full suit?
Yes.
It was, wasn't it?
Yes.
All right. Well, there it is. Producer Lewis, Krakatoa metal band, playing shows in suits. It must have been out of line with the rest of the band's attire, right?
I stuck out a little bit.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
Also, this is really weird. I got an email from one of the members of the rap group The Old Timers. And this is made up, of course, of MC Squared and Wong Fei Hung. And I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And they indicated I'm actually mentioned in the rap lyrics and that they love the show. Cool. So I can't even tell you the name of the song, because just the name of the song already would get us kicked off a lot of radio and TV stations, because it includes some of those 7 dirty words, which ruin children's lives, of course, as we know. So I can't even tell you the name of the song, but the band is the Old Timers. And I can't even play most of the song, because the lyrics also fall into that category of stuff I can't play. So I'll just play for you the really brief part that mentions me, that doesn't have any swears in it. And, you know, you be the judge, Lewis, of what you think about this. Here we go.
Okay.
One man said that Wampi Hunger's so handsome, and your daughter will likely have my grandson. Don't think that they can't happen. It's a fact, man, that you beat like David Pakman and show your girlie where the magic happens.
Okay, so there it is. So the line is, you're meek like David Pakman. So I wrote back and I said, is this good? Like, what are you talking about? I mean, meek means quiet, gentle, easily imposed on, submissive, as in, and the example that's used in the dictionary is the meek compliance of our politicians. I don't know that this is a positive reference. I wish my first foray into rap lyrics was more positive.
Well, you'll just have to become a hip hop artist and do your own.
Well, I told Wong that is this really even good? And he said, it's really more of a reference to the soft-spoken nature of your guys' show. Hope you aren't upset. And I'm not upset, but I have to say, the rest of the song is incredibly misogynistic, like to the extreme. And I just don't know what I think about this. I guess it's cool that I'm in a rap song, but I wish the song wasn't riddled with misogynistic and sexist overtones, you know?
It's rap, David.
Oh, all right, okay.
Yeah, that's what it is.
All right, I apologize.
Yeah.
Anyway, any other rap songs that I'm in, feel free to send them to us through our website, davidpakman.com, or tell me about them via voicemail. I have a voicemail. Today, we're not going to read emails. I just have one voicemail that I think is very, very interesting, which I want to address in detail. Here is the voicemail, which was left at our voicemail line, 219-2-DAVID-P. Listen to this.
Hey, David, Lewis, and Tom. This is Dallin from Memphis, Tennessee, and I have a question that has almost nothing to do with the show itself, rather with the people who call in and leave voicemails. And I would love to hear what you guys have to say about my observation. First of all, it seems like a great majority of the individuals who call in are kind of odd people. Like, most of them have never really talked to people before and just kind of off the wall. And if they aren't very eccentric sounding, they seem to ramble on for way too long, and David always has to cut them off. Why do you think that is? And do you think that's just the people who watch your show, or do you think that those are just the ones who call in? I love watching the show every day, guys, so keep it up. Keep me interested. Keep everyone interested, obviously.
All right, so this is a fascinating voicemail because, you know, I'm gonna reveal a lot of stuff on the show here, Lewis. Is that okay?
Please.
Okay. We've had internal discussions about whether we are observing some self-selection bias when we look at different areas of the show. So people who leave voicemails do often fit into two categories. It seems sometimes like it's people who maybe are not that comfortable in their own skin, so to speak. In other words, they're not presenting well, and that may be just because they're nervous because they're leaving a voicemail that may be played on the air. And also, there are a lot of voicemails that are very, they seem a little bit disconnected from reality, in the sense that sometimes people will leave the full 3-minute voicemail until it gets cut off, and they don't realize that we never play those on the show. It's not really relevant. It's not good for TV. And sometimes they will actually call back, and sometimes people will call back 2, 3, 4 times in a row. I don't think I'm saying anything out of turn here in saying that sometimes we've had voicemails that were actually so concerning, they went so far along this spectrum, so to speak, that the FBI actually did get involved with some of the calls that were left because they alluded to violence, it alluded to a lot of different things. So that's one section. I think there is some self-selection bias. There are some people, and again, there have been authorities involved, who have fixated on contacting us through a lot of different avenues, including but not limited to the voicemail line. And again, authorities have had to get involved sometimes. And sometimes we ask the question, are these all the people that are listening to the show? Now, the reality is that there's a whole other group, a number of other groups that are self-selected, which you never hear about, right? I mean, in other words, the silent majority, the 99%, so to speak, who just watch this show. And they just listen. They may send an email every once in a while. Most of them never even really come into contact with us. I can tell you for a fact, every show I watch, I've never come into any kind of contact with, so nobody would know.
Right.
So there's some self-selection bias. There's a lot of different things going on, and we have some different groups.
That's it.
We have the voicemail group. We have the email group. We have the stalker group. We have the,
the T-shirt group.
There's a lot of different groups, and that's all I can say. And I would tell everybody, There are all kinds who are involved here with the David Pakman Show, and that's, I think, as far as we can go today, Lewis.
That's all we have time for.
All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow afternoon or on the bonus show right now if you're a member. I mean, why not be a member at this point?
Do it.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.